For a second, imagine you're an FC Barcelona board member. You recently hired Xavi Hernandez to revamp your men's team, and he's brought back that identity that Barcelona had lost, showing that if you gave him a better set of players, he could potentially bring back the glory days. Now, currently, you're sitting in a meeting about squad building, and the question is asked of what needs to be done differently. Who needs to be sold or recruited. What would you say? Sign a striker maybe? Yeah. Sign a backup left back and a right back? Definitely. Sign a new center back? Of course. Heck, sign a new starting goalkeeper while you're at it, right? Would you think sell the only player currently capable of replacing a retiring legend like Sergio Busquets? Of course not. That would be ridiculous. But that's exactly what Barca decided to do when their board sat and floated the idea of selling Frenkie De Jong. But why exactly did that happen? How did it get to that? And more importantly, how did we arrive at this moment where it seems a sale to Manchester United is imminent but has been stalled because of two completely separate reasons, one coming from the Manchester camp suggesting that it's because Barca owed De Jong money, and the reason coming from the Catalan club is that Frenkie simply doesn't want to leave. Who's lying? Who's telling the truth? Well, let's try and make sense of all of that in this edition of The Curious Case, where we're going to be talking about Frenkie De Jong. So this is The Curious Case of Frenkie De Jong. In the interest of having a full picture, we will have to start by first taking a short trip back in time. The year is 2020. The world is in the vice-like grip of a terrible pandemic that has crippled many economies and claimed millions of lives, and consequently brought the football world to a halt. As one can imagine, this was not too good for many football franchises, particularly those that are fan-owned. Barca is, of course, one such club. Since the pandemic began, ESPN reported in November 2020, revenues have fallen dramatically at Barca. The club announced losses of 97 million from the 2019-20 season in October and confirmed that their total debt had doubled to 488 million euros. The report continued. The latest accounts revealed a total income of 855 million, down over 200 million on the 1.06 billion they predicted they would have brought in without the coronavirus outbreak. That would have led to profits of around 30 million euros. Among other losses, Barcelona explained that they lost 47 million in matchday revenue, 35 million in sales at the club shops, and 18 million in ticketing from the museum based at Camp Nou. Now, that's a whole lot of numbers, and you're probably wondering what the point is here. Well, I promise you I am getting to it. You see, whilst football was away for about 2 months, the institutions like Barca were still around and their players and staff still needed to be paid. I'm not going to go into too much detail on that because it's not the point of this video, but to get around these issues, Barcelona requested their players to take wage cuts and to defer some of their wages. As per earlier ESPN report from Sam Marsden and Moises Lloren, Barcelona players agreed to defer a significant amount of their wages for the 2021 season to save the club up to 172 million euros. The report continues, the agreement is player specific and sources have told ESPN most players will be remunerated in the coming seasons. How many seasons will depend on each player's contract length and will receive interest of around 3% on the amount they have agreed to defer. Marc-Andre ter Stegen, Frenkie De Jong, Gerard Piqué, and Clément Lenglet had already agreed to wage deferrals this season as part of the new contracts they signed in October. So, here we see where the Frenkie De Jong wage deferral came from, and we will put a footnote in that, and also we'll take note of the fact that all of Barcelona's players agreed to deferred wages. Okay, so now we know how the wage deferrals came to be and why players like Piqué, Busquets, ter Stegen, Lenglet, Alba and De Jong came to be in the situation where Barca quote-unquote owe them money. But this is the curious case of Frenkie De Jong and not the curious case of Barcelona's wage differers. So, one would ask, why then did the Barcelona board decide to sell Frenkie De Jong? Now, the first thing to understand about Barcelona's motivation to sell Frenkie is that it is not a sporting decision. Sure, Frenkie De Jong hasn't exactly set the world on fire during his time playing for Barca, but that has been far from any fault of his own, as there has been a ton of instability on the pitch and in the background almost since the moment he signed for Barca. Despite that instability though, he has still managed to prove crucial to the tactical machinations of each of the 5 managers he has worked with, and that wasn't just because he was an expensive signing. So, the desire to sell Frenkie is not based on performances, but rather it's an economical decision. In a deep dive looking at Frenkie's contract with Barca, Marca reported that Barcelona have to pay 88.58 million euros for the fixed salary and loyalty bonuses that De Jong has on his contract. The report continues, there are also variables worth 8 million euros, 2 million for each year, if he plays 60% of the games, and a maximum of 12.8 million euros, which is 3.2 million euros per year for titles won or reaching the final of the Champions League. Now, you can be forgiven if you're listening to this from a Barcelona persuasion and you're thinking that's way too much money to be paying Frenkie De Jong. In fact, you'd be of the same mind as Joan Laporta, who on numerous occasions stated that De Jong needs to take a pay cut, sometimes directly and other times indirectly. So much like they did 2 years ago with Leo Messi's contract, Marca go on to break down exactly what De Jong's contract looks like. The player's fixed salary was stipulated at 14 million euros when he signed for Barcelona in 2019. Secondly, there are deferred payments brought about by the pandemic, as De Jong gave up an important part of his salary in an agreement that meant he would recover the amount during the following seasons. Then finally, there are loyalty bonuses he has in his contract totaling 15.58 million euros. The deferred payments, together with the loyalty bonuses, mean that in the next 2 seasons, the overall amount to be received by the player will rise significantly. So, if last season he received a fixed sum of 9 million euros, the next season he will receive double that amount. In addition, he will also receive a bonus of almost 3 million euros, which would bring his total pay to almost 21 million euros, and this would finally culminate in him getting a figure of 27.7 million euros in the 22-23 season. Obviously, such a contract will be a big challenge if you're signing players and trying to convince everybody that they need to take pay cuts because your board is not Bartomeu's board and you will not overpay for any players. Therein lies the heart of the motivation of Laporta and his board in their decision to offload Frenkie De Jong this summer, despite the fact they are going to lose Sergio Busquets next summer, according to his own admission. Now, remember how we said we'd put a footnote in the story detailing how Barca had agreed a 172 million wage deferral deal? Nice. This is what that meant for Frenkie De Jong. So, in his first season, the club reduced the salary of all first-team players by 12% on a linear basis, and so the Dutchman was paid 12.32 million euros instead of the 14 million euros in his contract. The continuation of the pandemic meant that the following year his contract had to be renegotiated once more. What the player did was to extend his contract for 2 more seasons and defer his payments. In his first 2 seasons, 2020-2021 and 2021-22, the player reduced his salary from 14 million euros to 3 million euros and 9 million euros respectively. That meant giving up 16 million euros, which he would be paid over the remaining 4 seasons until the end of his contract in 2026. And remember, that 16 million would come with that 3% interest. This is why he will now earn a fixed 18 million euros made up of the 14 million euros he was earning plus the 4 million euros deferred. For the final season, there will be an additional €1 million bonus, bringing the total amount he earns in wages to €19 million. I've taken this extra bit of time to break down that figure so that as we move forward, we can fully understand the situation and appreciate it for what it truly is. So, what is the said situation? Well, we can start by breaking it down into what we can confirm to be certified facts. Fact number 1, FC Barcelona wants to sell Frenkie De Jong. Fact number 2, Manchester United wants to sign Frenkie De Jong. Fact number 3, a transfer fee has been agreed by both clubs. And finally, fact number 4, the deal has stalled. It is, however, from this last fact that a lot of speculation has arisen from both sides of the Atlantic divide on this issue. On the one side, the claim is that Barcelona have held up the deal because of De Jong's deferred wages, which they're refusing to pay, whilst on the other side, the claim is that De Jong has refused to give his okay to the deal because he does not want to play for Manchester United. On the surface, both these claims seem pretty believable for those sympathizing with the individuals reporting, but however, legitimate questions can be asked of these reports that raise credible doubts about their accuracy. For example, with the latter claim, one can ask why Manchester United are still hanging around and waiting on a guy who allegedly has no interest in ever signing for them. Similarly, with the former report, you could ask why other players who have left Barca like Coutinho and Griezmann didn't have any issues with their deferred wages, and we didn't hear Barcelona refusing to pay their deferred wages and therefore holding up their transfers, especially when you consider that they were on much higher wages than what De Jong is on at Barca. Remember, all of Barcelona's players agreed to deferred wages for the 2020-2021 season and also in 2020 while no football was being played. Looking at how reports have emerged that Laporta made a direct communication to De Jong telling him that Barca wants him to pack up and leave, you wonder why that would be necessary if the player was already agreeable to a move. As with many other cases of transfer rumors with Barca, I guess the truth is somewhere in the middle, and depending on which of the two sides you're looking at this from, you're likely to favor your side's version of events. My take on all of this though is that Laporta is desperate to get De Jong off Barca's books or to keep him on lower wages. His current contract does not fit into the wage structure that Laporta is trying to implement, and keeping him around on those wages could make managing the dressing room very difficult for him as president. De Jong, however, has no immediate need to leave, as he has said that he will continue to be available as long as Xavi has him in his plans, and it seems that continues to be the case because De Jong is with Barca in the USA on their pre-season tour. So, are Barca really refusing to pay him his deferred wages? Is Frenkie De Jong really refusing to go to Manchester United because he's uninterested in playing for them? Is this all as simple as De Jong will leave if Xavi tells him to go? I do not know, and probably no one beyond the player and his agent knows for sure, and I guess that's what makes Frenkie De Jong's current situation a curious case. Hi guys, if you're still listening at this point, thank you very much. This is a new concept of videos that I want to be uploading here, and maybe I'll be putting them on the podcast as well. Just taking a look at different players or situations or clubs, whatever, and just talking about what I think are curiosities regarding their situation. So, we could do something like the curious case of Barca's financials, all that kind of stuff. It has been a very long time since I did something scripted, so I'm happy that I was able to put this one out there, and I'm thankful once again. If you're still tuned in, please do let me know in your comments what you think of this. Do you want to see more curious case videos? Do you want to see more curious cases? Maybe it's what I should have asked. Do you want to see more curious cases? Let me know in the comments, and also hit like, because I like it when you hit like. And if you haven't yet already, hit subscribe because you're going to get content like this going forward. So thank you once again. Have a great day and Forza Basa.